It's quite something to see the organic matter of a plant with wires being drilled into it. So this is the sensor that will be inserted into the plant?
Absolutely.
So this really does just look like a toothpick on the end?
Exactly, that's very tiny.
I'm in Puglia, Italy's renowned olive oil region, surrounded by the trees that have grown this liquid gold for centuries. But today, ancient farming traditions are being transformed with a modern technological touch.
This farm was bought by my father 20 years ago, but our knowledge as a family comes from at least 1.5 centuries.
Alessandro Ardito's family run one of Puglia's most successful olive farms.
So back in the day, our ancestors used to work with olive trees and vineyards, and they were master in doing what they were doing without our modern utilities.
Talking of those modern utilities,
You've implemented some modern technology here at the farm. Tell me about why you've decided to do that.
We wanted to try a process that can measure what is going on inside the plant, so we can make sure that the plant is healthy, because we want to know why there is a different answer between olive trees, because we give them the same treatment.
your father has been a farmer for all his working life, and your family have been farmers for generations. Why do you need technology to tell you about how healthy a plant is? Surely they can do it without.
Yeah, we can do without it, but maybe data can help you understand a little bit more. I think technology can help us to understand better our plants.
There's a lot we don't know about plants, like how they respond to certain kinds of stress and how some nutrients are distributed through their various parts. Even olive trees, which humans have farmed for at least 6,000 years, remain a mystery when it comes to certain internal functions.
So you've just installed the sensor here?
Yeah.
Ah, there we go,
Yeah,
okay.
it's the first one.
And that's actually inside the tree? You kind of injected it into the tree?
Yeah, it's like a toothpick inserted inside the stem just to collect the life signals of the plant.
Matteo Beccatelli started his career working with athletes, making biosensors in clothes that analysed their sweat. Now he's using those same principles to monitor plant sap.
Does it damage the plant in any way, inserting this?
No, basically not, because the area that we remove when we make the hole to insert our probe is quite small regarding the entire dimension of the plant.
So is it just the one plant that has this probe inserted on this farm?
No, this is the final part of our monitoring system. We need 4 trees to represent an area,
Because it's important to have a group of monitoring.
Okay, so there are more here that you have the sensors, can
exactly.
we see?
Because you see the probe that is connected to a wire that is fixed here on the irrigation stuff, and then this is the heart of our system.
Ah, with a solar panel.
Yeah, exactly, because
just to install in the field is important to have energetic independence.
What are we looking at inside this box?
Basically, you have a connection between the brain and the sensor inside the stem.
Ah, so this is where all the information is kind of coming from.
Yeah, exactly. From these wires, you can apply currents to our probes, and you can read other parameters from the sap.
The PlantVoice sensor analyses the sap and feeds data to farmers in real time. kind of like when human patients are hooked up to a medical monitor. And just like medical machines for humans, the PlantVoice sensor has to be safe for plants. It's 3D printed using a wooden substrate, so it won't be rejected by the plant and can read electric signals from the sap.
In the day, the plants make photosynthesis, so from the root directly to the top of the tree, you have a flow of ions, a flow of liquids to produce glucose and nutrients for the plant. During the night, this flow slows a lot, and then you can see these changes in the life signals from the day to the night, and this delta is called the health of the plant. So with all these analyses, we can identify precisely the type of diseases, the needs of the plant, and so we work every day to improve the value of the production and reduce the cost, so increase the margins for the farm.
Farms already rely on a lot of technology, like weather stations, soil analysis, and satellite data to provide a picture of crop health. But those only look at external signs. Matteo says getting a snapshot of what's going on inside the plant is crucial. And these sensors will help them build AI models and algorithms to understand the stressors the plants are subjected to over time.
When the probe is inserted into the plant, what is it actually looking for?
The first parameter that we see is the concentration of mineral salts, so basically the ions, positive ions that are dissolved inside the liquid. And so we see the changes on this concentration of minerals during time. And on the other side, we can see the flow of the sap, because this is related to other parameters, is another parameter that is important to determine the health of the plant. You have to start from the sap directly, because, for example, drought stress or fungin stress or infections shows their effects on leaves days after. So with this technology that analyzes directly the sap, you can prevent diseases, you can prevent also drought stress, because you understand changes days and days before of the problems shows externally.
And this information is being relayed to the farmer in real time. Why is that so important?
So we are helping them by giving insights directly related to the health. By analyzing the sap, you can obtain a graph that is like a shape of electrical signals during time. And if you have one specific infection, you can have a shape that is like this, for example, or with a different type of infection, probably with fungin or fungin stress or the other type of diseases, you may have this shape. So by analyzing the shape, you extract value about what is the specific diseases related to the stress and to the health status of the plant.
As well as being able to diagnose stress and disease, PlantVoice says reports from its sensor will help farmers cut the use of things like fertilisers and pesticides by up to 40%. That's an ambitious target, especially considering how resource-intensive modern farming can be. Take water, for example.
Imagine that you have 200 acres, and per acres you have thousands of plants. If you have a technology that can save up to 40% of the water, imagine that the impact of this technology, because also if you reduce water, you save electric power from the pump that irrigate in the field.
For a season, a tree can take from 15,000 liters to up to maybe 18,000. So I hope that we can give an efficient method to give a precise amount of water to our trees.
The Ardito farm only uses irrigation when there isn't enough rainfall. But in parts of the world where water is becoming scarcer, we need more sustainable ways to irrigate crops. So PlantVoice needs to test its sensors in different agricultural environments.
Tommaso, hi.
Hello.
How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm sorry to interrupt you as you're hard at work.
No problem, don't worry.
Matteo Beccatelli is Matteo's brother and also PlantVoice's production manager. He's installing sensors at a Sicilian greenhouse that grows fruits like raspberries, kiwis and blueberries.
So this is the sensor that will be inserted into the plant.
Absolutely.
So this really does just look like a toothpick on the end.
Exactly, that's very tiny. The black part is the core of the sensor that detects the variation inside of the plant.
And drilling a hole into the plant doesn't cause damage or stress?
Just a little stress, but in a few days this stress will go away. So now we make the sensor in connection with the electronic device.
Oh, right, okay, and so this will be connected to the actual sensor itself?
Yes, exactly.
Does the type of sensor you use change depending on the type of plant you're putting it into, or it's the exact same sensor?
The diameter don't change. Change only the distance of the sensor.
Right.
Now we put into the hole very carefully.
How much would a sensor like this cost?
The cost is about the plant monitoring. We are 500 euros for one plant monitoring.
To gain the data they need to build the predictive AI models these systems will be based on, PlantVoice estimates it needs 4 of these sensors per hectare or greenhouse.
The last part is to cover the sensor.
So that's the glue that's going to hold it in place?
Exactly. So nothing can go inside and damage the plant.
Just like on the olive farm, the sensors here will track fluctuations in salt and mineral levels within the sap, converting them into electrical signals. These signals are then processed through the system's central hub and fed into PlantVoice's AI algorithm, which deciphers the data and delivers real-time insights to farmers via an app.
This is the traffic light that tell you in real time if the plant is in the right state or there's some problem. Green light is the optimal way, so the plant, there's no problem. Yellow, warning, maybe there's some problem and the farmer maybe need go to check. Red light, there's some big problem. It's critical, so farmer absolutely need to go to check what is going on.
PlantVoice will soon insert sensors on blueberry crops in a nearby greenhouse. Having sensors in different agricultural environments helps fine-tune the AI that eventually sift through all that data. They also tag the data, so the algorithm learns what signs to look out for and even predict problems.
Knowing this different type of variation, this different type of stress, and including all the environmental data, just like temperature, humidity, or other data, we can create just like a pattern for each stress. So the farmer can see in real time if the plant is okay or there's some problems.
Technology like this can challenge our ideas of what farming looks like. Sebastiano Jaquinta is the first farmer in his family with a degree in agriculture.
When you think of farming, what comes to mind is a manual labour getting their hands dirty in the soil. But actually, by the sounds of what we're hearing from you and what's happening here, there's a push towards becoming almost a data-driven scientist in doing what you do as a farmer. Is that the future of farming?
Ormai l'agricoltura non è come in passato, ma abbiamo bisogno di avere più tecnologia all'interno appunto delle nostre serre per diciamo, controllare tutti i dati, temperatura, umidità, anche la quantità di acqua che noi diamo giornalmente alle piante, poi in base al tempo.
Will this enable you to farm more sustainably?
Sì, sicuramente le nuove generazioni devono, a chi si vuole approcciare, diciamo, al mondo attuale dell'agricoltura, deve comunque studiare tantissimo, deve essere a conoscenza non solo dell'agronomia in generale, ma deve comunque avere una base di conoscenza digitale proprio per utilizzare al meglio tutte queste nuove applicazioni che ci permettono di lavorare al meglio, non come invece i nostri, diciamo, agricoltori del passato.
Back on the Ardito farm in Puglia, the hope is to not just use this technology to cut costs, but also open up new revenue streams.
Our plants produce olives, but all the plants catching carbon dioxide, and olive trees are very good at that. So we can measure all the vital parameters of the tree, and then we can scale up how many carbon dioxide tons our trees catched during the year, and sell all these credits that are made based on analytic data.
Carbon credits let companies offset their emissions by funding projects that reduce CO2 elsewhere, like reforestation or clean energy. Or in this case, farming practices that help lock away more carbon in the trees and soil. I'm back at the Ardito olive farm in Puglia to meet Francesco Masado, the CEO and co-founder of Alberami, a company that works with farmers to implement more sustainable practices and improve plant health.
So what you're doing now is looking at the results of the recommendations you're giving to farmers. What are you suggesting to them?
In this particular farm, they're applying 3 practices, which are looking at reusing some of the pruning residue, for example, incorporating them into the soil or using them as mulch. Using something called zeolite, which is a mineral powder which is sprayed on the canopy of the tree, which defends it from, for example, flea or something like excessive heat. Obviously, it will be sprayed later on in the year when the heat here is very intense. And the third one is, instead of using mineral fertilizer, they will use natural fertilizer, so manure, or incorporating, for example, biochar or some elements of biochar, not across the whole farm. The idea is that the farmer adopts new practices in the hope of obviously increasing the fertility of the soil. Fertility of the soil is usually a correlation of SOC, soil organic carbon, or organic matter. So our intention is to measure how much soil organic carbon has been stored as opposed to what it was doing before the application of practices. And then the difference is quantified in terms of carbon credits, which are then sold, and then some of the proceeds, up to 75% of the proceeds, are distributed to them.
Francesco will use PlantVoice's sensors to see if practices that help soil absorb more carbon also improve plant health. He's also testing the soil to record how healthy it is before those practices are implemented.
How long does the process take once you've got these samples for them to be properly analysed?
Soil collection to credit emission, let's say, it takes about 6 months. It's quite a long process because we have to wait for data that comes from satellites, in other cases, from satellites to measure above ground and below ground biomass as well. So it's a combination of ground truth data and remote sensing data. And the remote sensing data usually takes a couple of months after the end of the previous year. I'm just going to dig a little bit more.
Okay, so this is about 10 to 20 centimetres deep, so now you need to sample the deeper level of soil.
Yes, so we've went another 10 centimetre down, so this is the 20 to 30 centimetre soil profile. And so we're going to try and take as few rocks as possible and as much soil as possible.
Do you have any idea at this stage, just from sight, what you can expect to find?
I would have loved to see perhaps some worms, indication of good healthy soil, but at the moment there is none. So hopefully, through the years, through the implementation of our practices, we'll have a much more alive soil. But at the moment is just ordinary soil. Now the final part is what's called a bulk density test. We use a device, literally just a still cylinder, which is 2.2 inches by 2.2 inches, and we'll just basically hammer it into the soil. Obviously not a loose type of soil, but a compact type of soil. We'll just put it here. I think we've reached our limit. So it will tell you how much sand there is, how much organic matter there is.
So at this stage, you're taking essentially a picture of what's happening underneath the crop.
Correct, yes, yeah.
Critics say carbon credits let companies buy their way out of making real emissions cuts, with some projects even failing to deliver the promised climate benefits.
What generates carbon credits essentially is the difference between what was the status quo, sort of, what the farmer does without our intervention, and then what is the result of the practice that we promote. So that goes obviously towards the additionality aspect of the carbon credits, which is key. So what we want to try and sort of demonstrate is that in the absence of our project, this new sequestration would not have happened. So we have to generate new sequestration to balance the books, essentially.
The technology and sustainability practices being experimented with here are not just about making farmers more money. They also offer consumers like you and me a choice. Massimo Ferri is the CEO of ESG Max. Along with another company called The Good in Town, it can use AI and data collected from PlantVoice's sensors to create a report, which rates a company on how sustainable it is.
It's necessary because the value of a company could not remain only into the numbers of financial report. And ESG Max is able to get the data that the sensor produce, translate that in sustainability indexes, and report it into the platform.
ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Factors that measure a company's impact on the planet, society, and its ethical practices. Information which is shared with environmental ratings agencies and investors.
I get to know that those fruits or those vegetables, the growth of that have impacted on the environment in a positive or negative way. Because in case I use too much chemicals or too much product that, for example, could affect the biodiversity of the field that those vegetables and those fruits have been created in, is not good in terms of ecosystem. So ESG is right that. Is a wider point of view because everything is really connected. The fruits that they find into that market is really connected to the wellness of the environment. And all these connections can be read only analyzing the data. And nowadays we can say that only through our AI. We are very lucky because there are very strict regulations about the traceability of foods, but now we got one more tool that we can use, that is the sustainability report. Now companies has got to report everything that the company has done to create that product.
From the sap of young trees in olive groves, to the supermarkets where we choose what we want to eat. The future of farming isn't just dependent on making crops more resistant to diseases and climate change. It's also about using technology to create AI models and algorithms based on the data gathered by these sensors to allow farming itself to become more efficient and sustainable.
We have to adapt very quickly, but nature takes its time. So we have to find a compromise between technology, old methods, and what the customer needs.
We are opening a new view on a new world, so we need a lot of data, we need a lot of probe inserted in different type of crops. We can make the difference from this new platform database that we build. So the farmers have to increase their knowledge about sustainability, have to increase their knowledge about technologies, because it's the only way to remain competitive.